a number of things that work. One is increased intensity through weight, right? To a certain point, because just doing maximal lifts all the time will destroy you and not necessarily build muscle. It may build a more active nervous system, so that way you recruit more muscle mass until you get injured, but it doesn't necessarily build hypertrophic gains, right? Muscle mass. So what I mean by is increased intensity to a certain point. So say, 6 reps or 7 reps or 8 reps is the highest intensity you can go with weight and still make muscle mass gains. It's going to be different for each person, but you get what I'm saying. Intensity plays a factor in that. Fountain. There's another form of intensity, right? The other form of intensity is how deep into failure can you go to flick a switch to cause the body to adapt. And this is a relevant one. It's a relevant principle, but what I find is a lot of people usually people who follow Mike Mentzer and have never spoken to him in person like I have. I spoke to him actually in person and talked to him where he made some crazy claims about his philosophies, which, well, I don't know if I'll get into them today, but the bottom line is that people get overly attached and say now intensity is all that matters. Just train the body once every 8 days and don't train it at all for 7 days, and then train it again for 20 minutes 8 days later, and you're going to make massive growth. Well, maybe if you've never done anything before that, maybe if you didn't do any exercise, or maybe if you are automatically one of those guys that gains muscle really easily just by sitting on a couch. I knew this one guy, Wally Fowler, he might be still watching this video right now. And in high school, this guy could do a standing backflip, run the 100-meter dash in about 11 seconds. And at the same time, he was 208, basically heavier than I am right now at 5'7" in grade 12. So this guy was a genetic freak, and he'd only work out once in a while. Like, he wasn't even training that often, right? He just had this genetic ability to grow. So a person like him, he could adapt to anything. And I think, yeah, maybe he could get away with doing just one set once in a while just to remind the body to grow a little bit more than it already was growing. But for most of us, we need some intensity, but we also need a certain amount of volume. Right? So that's my next thing I'm getting to. Sorry if the wind is too bad here. But that's the other thing I'm going to get to, is that volume plays a role in how much muscle you can gain or in gaining muscle. So a lot of people say, no, if you do more than a couple sets or more than 3 or 4 sets, it's too much or whatever. Well, lately I've been doing 10 sets per body part every second day. So basically I'm doing a 2-day split, but I'm doing 10 sets every second day for a body part using different rep ranges. Right? And I'm getting results. You can see that I'm actually putting on muscle. So if high volume or higher volume was absolute bullshit, I would not be putting on any muscle doing this. You see what I'm saying? So volume plays a factor, intensity through weight plays a factor, and intensity through effort as far as going deep into failure also plays a factor. And you can play with these 3 variables and see which variable applies to you in this moment, you see? And that's what people mix up. They realize that, oh, this principle right now is working great, so that means it always works. Well, no, maybe you've got some specific variables at work going on right now that are contributing to the efficacy of this certain technique. But maybe after 2 or 3 months of training a certain way, then your body's going to need maybe less volume and more intensity, like more drop sets, more strip sets, or a different rep range altogether, or maybe a different split, right? So when I usually have arguments with people in the comments and I start to get snappy, right? Because it's a lot of work to answer comments all the time. It's usually because somebody says, Jason, what you're doing doesn't work. And this is the only principle that works. This is the one. You just don't know anything. That's why you're speaking from your own experience, about what worked, right? You can see the stupidity of the comments, right? As soon as somebody comes out with a comment like that, that's when I come out with the guns a-blazing, because I've already tried a lot of techniques. I've tried a million techniques. And I'll tell you right now, doing 1 set every 8 days for a body part. And this came from Mike Mentzer's mouth. Just so you know, Mike Mentzer told me when I sat across the table from him, he said he theorized that if he did 1 body part once every 8 days, that would be enough training for the overall body. So meaning I would probably only get my whole body trained in about 5 to 6 weeks or something, you know? So you can see that would be ludicrous. For me, I find that if I don't train for 2 or 3 days a week and only train 3 days, maybe 4 days, I go backwards. Like my muscle mass actually goes down. Like people actually make comments on my video like, hey Jason, you lost some weight, what's going on? It's not because I'm not training, it's just that I'm not training as much. So there is a threshold for an amount of volume as well, and some people will have a lower threshold than others, but to say that one set applies to all would be absolute bullshit, right? I think I have it.